The San Francisco 49ers are 6-6 taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 7-5. The 49ers are a 1-point underdog going into this matchup. This game is going to kick off 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS this Sunday. San Francisco was on a pretty good winning streak, and they were looking like a pretty good football team for the last couple of weeks until last week, where they lost to Seattle 23-30, and the Bengals were on a pretty good path until they ran into the Chargers and they lost to them 41-22. For the 49ers, they are dealing with some injuries at running back. Elijah Mitchell currently is listed as questionable. He's trying to pass the NFL's concussion protocol. Jeff Wilson also was on the injury report. And you don't have Trey Sermon because he currently is on IR with an ankle injury. So I'm kind of questioning just how effective the 49ers will be when it comes to their ability to run the football, because I feel like the run game wasn't really all that good last week against Seattle. Like, it was solid, but it wasn't as effective of what the 49ers would like for it to be, which was a big reason why they lost that game. And Jimmy Garoppolo threw 2 costly interceptions, and you probably don't want to have to put Jimmy Garoppolo in another situation where he needs to throw the ball 35 or more than 30 times to win the game, because Jimmy Garoppolo at this point, we know what he is. He's a solid quarterback when you don't need him to win the game for you, but if all you need him to do is to manage the game, he's pretty good at that. But if this game ends up going into shootout territory and they have to rely a little bit more on Jimmy Garoppolo in that passing attack, I think that could vote some trouble for the 49ers offense. Joe Burrow, how healthy is he going to be in this game? Last week against the Chargers, he had a pinky injury, which kind of limited how much velocity, and that's a hard word to pronounce, velocity. He wasn't able to put a lot of velocity and zip on his throws last week. He was kind of throwing a lot of floaters because his pinky was banged up. So I want to know just how healthy is he going to be in this game. And not just him, but the Bengals have a lot of injuries that they're currently dealing with right now. This is the time of the season where we normally see that for a lot of teams. The injury report starting to get really thick, and you're without a lot of key starters in a very critical stretch of the season. For the Bengals last week, they had a couple of offensive linemen who didn't play. Offensive tackle Riley Reef and also center Trey Hopkins currently listed as questionable for this contest. Then you also had injury to linebacker Logan Wilson. So the Bengals are really banked up right now. So are the 49ers on the offensive side of the football. But I think the 49ers offense probably could struggle in this matchup because the Cincinnati Bengals have a really underrated defense, and their defense was a big reason why they were able to get back into the game last week against the Chargers. Even though the score still looks really one-sided, there was a point in this game where the Chargers were up 24-0 last week going into the second quarter of their matchup really early, and the reason why the Bengals were able to get back into the game and make it a contest midway through the third quarter was because their defense was forcing turnovers. They forced 2 fumbles. They had the interception. So the Bengals defense helped them get back into that game, but then the offense wasn't really able to get much going. And so fourth quarter, the defense got tired. But for the Bengals defensively, I think that last week was probably their worst performance, especially in the secondary. Jesse Bates got caught on, I believe, for a touchdown. Like, the Bengals secondary definitely had a hard day against the passing attack of the Chargers. You're going against the 49ers, and although they have some weapons, you do have George Kittle, who went off last week. He had 2 touchdowns. He had a very good game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You also have wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, who kind of got out to a slow start this season. He has started to pick things up over the last couple of games. So for the Bengals secondary, they're definitely going to get a very good matchup in terms of the targets that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be throwing the football to. Now, Joe Mixon, Joe Mixon is most likely going to have a heavy workload in this game, I expect, because even if Joe Burrow is healthy enough to play in this game and the finger is a little bit more healed than what it was last week, I still expect the fact that the game plan will probably want to be running the football with Joe Mixon. He should have around 20 carries, at least 26, 27 touches in this matchup. The 49ers run defense has been in the middle of the pack this year. They are 18th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed, allowing 114.3 rushing yards per game. So I think that this definitely is a matchup that would be very good for Joe Mixon. So if you have Joe Mixon on your fantasy team, I definitely think that you probably will want to start him in this matchup, because I think that this probably could be a game that he has a good showing in. And for the Bengals, I noticed that in a lot of games that they've lost this year, a couple of them have been because they started out sloppy, they got out to a slow start, and they had a lot of turnovers. You look at that game against the Cleveland Browns when they were in the red zone and Joe Burrow threw that 98-yard pick six to Denzel Ward. The Bengals have a tendency this year to come out slow, turn the ball over in the first quarter, and then find a way to come back into games. I feel like when you're going against a team that likes to run the football like the 49ers, this is kind of the last team that you want to be down to, because once the 49ers get up, if they're able to have success running the football, they're going to be able to win the line of scrimmage battle, and they're going to be able to control time possession, keep your defense on the field, and keep your offense off the field. And I don't really think that the Bengals want to get into that situation where they're down and the 49ers are having a lot of success on the ground chewing out that clock. So for the Bengals, they got to be a lot better in the first quarter in terms of their execution, because too many times in the first quarter they come out sloppy or they come out flat and they end up shooting themselves in the foot, because now they spend the rest of the game coming back from behind. And when you have to come back from behind, then you're not really able to run the football the way that you would like to, because you're trying to score fast and you're trying to score as quick as possible. So you tend to lean away from the run game instead of utilizing the run game, which is why the Bengals have to be much better in how they perform in the first quarter of these games. So the team that I'm going to take to win this game, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. The reason why I'm going with the Bengals to win against the 49ers is because the 49ers are currently really banged up at the running back position. And the run game is a really strong part of the 49ers offense. And without it, I don't really think I trust Jimmy Garoppolo to be able to go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow. And I think that that Bengals defense will also have a pretty solid day against the 49ers offense, with them being dinged up at running back. And the 49ers are going against a really good defensive line in Cincinnati. So I think that pass rush for Cincinnati could get after Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo could have a rough day because he's going to be asked to have to do a lot, not really knowing the effectiveness of how the run game is going to be for the 49ers. And I think for Cincinnati, even if Joe Burrow isn't going to be able to throw the football downfield with that velocity that I was talking about earlier, I still feel like he can still be effective in the short passing game. On top of that, you have Joe Mixon. You're going to be able to rely on him, because the 49ers run defense has been average. Hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been great neither. So this also could be a big day for Joe Mixon, which is why I am going to take the 49ers to lose this game. And I think Cincinnati wins 24-17 is my final score prediction in this game. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals.